No, we didn't.
We did number 4? Or did not?
We didn't.
Oh.
I think we
I know some of you were working independently. So let's do number 4 on the distance. What is your A, B, and C value? One, -5, C is -36. And then we're using the formula to put all of these in. So x equals negative, b is already negative, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. Simplify the numbers inside the radical, and what would you get? What number will we get underneath the square root? 169. Is 169 a perfect square? Yes. So we're going to simplify this even more. 5 plus or minus 13 over 2. So then we can separate that into 2 different fractions. 5 minus 13 over 2, and 5 plus 13 over 2. Then we would need to simplify both. So 5 minus 13 would give us -8. 5 plus 13 would give us 18. And then we can simplify that once more to get our solution set. X equals -4 and 9. What questions do we have on that one? The last one we're going to do on this page is number 5, and then we're going to move on to the back. What are your A, B, and C values? 1, 6, and 10.
Oh, me?
No, him. When I saw your backpack, and that's not the one.
How much back then? And then we can put these in. So we would have negative 6 plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. Find the number underneath the square root. Negative 4. Can we take the square root of a negative number? No. So that should go back to when we were solving using square roots. No, we cannot. So at this point, we will have no solution. There's nothing else we can do with this. So if you get a negative underneath the square root, whether that's solving by square roots or solving using the quadratic formula, you will get no solution. You could try, you could put this in, but you'll get no real solutions or non-real solutions, something like that. Questions on number 5? Let's move on to the back. Starting with number 7. What are your A, B, and C values? -1, 7, and -3. Put those into your formula. X equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a. Be careful, your a is now negative, times c, all over 2a. Simplify the number underneath the square root, or your discriminant. Thirty-seven. Is 37 a perfect square? No. So this is going to be one that stays like the radical, or stays in the radical. Your solution set would be x equals -7 minus the square root of 37. I wrote 7 first. All over -2 and -7 plus the square root of 37 all over -2. When you get something that is not a perfect square, you should not be trying to simplify that more or put it in your calculator and get a decimal. Leave it as is. Questions on 7? I'm going to say yes. Put it least to greatest. So I'm putting the minus before the plus because whatever the minus would be less than whatever the plus is. We do number 11. Your A, B, and C values are what? 2, 5, and 4. Put those into your formula. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. Remember that your a value has changed. It is no longer 1. And find the number underneath your square root. Negative 7. So what would our next step be? So this would be no solution. We're going to do just a few more, and then you'll have time to practice. So starting with number 13. What are our A, B, and C values? 2. Negative 8 is B or C? It's C. What is B? 0. We don't have one. So keep that in mind when you go to put things in that you don't have a B value, so your answer is going to be a little less or have zeros in place. Still put the zeros in. So x equals negative 0 doesn't really make sense, but I'm just going to put that. Plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. Good. Okay. So now when you do the number underneath the square root, you don't have to worry about the 0 squared. Just this last part, you're just multiplying these three together. Include the negative with that, so it'd be negative 4 times 2 times negative 8. $64. I think that was right. Yep. Is 64 a perfect square? Yes. So here we have 0 plus or minus 8 over 4. We're keeping the 0 plus or minus, that way we can remember what we're actually doing to it. So we have 0 plus 8 over 4 and 0 minus 8 over 4, which would really just be 8 over 4 and negative 8 over 4. Or negative 2 and 3. So it's kind of ugly. But that's the answer for 13. Questions on 13? So the process is the same even if you're missing terms. If you were missing a C, if you were missing a B, anything, you would just put in a 0. For 14, we would need to move the 12x over before we could start this. So do that, subtract it over so that it's with everything else. And then list out your A, B, and C values, which are what? 4, negative 12, and 9. Then put those numbers into your formula. X equals negative B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4 times A times C all over 2A. And find the number underneath the square root. Zero. It is 0. They end up canceling each other out because if this 144, this becomes 144. But the square root of 0 is what? 0. So when we start to simplify this, we're going to have 12 plus or minus 0 over 8. The plus or minus 0 doesn't really matter because 12 is not going to change. Here it did because this became a positive and a negative, but here it doesn't. So we can decide this is 12 over 8. You're not going to have 2 answers here, you'll only have 1. And we can simplify this to what? 3 over 2. So if your inside or your discriminant cancels, it becomes 0. You're going to end up with just 1 solution. Your discriminant is negative, you get none or no solution. And then anything else is 2. Any questions on 14? For 16, we're going to start this one, and then I'll have you guys finish it. Because right now, we can't figure out what A, B, and C are because there's a bunch of stuff going on. You need to move everything to the same side, right? It doesn't matter which side you choose, but I would say try to make them positive because that would be the easiest. So I'm going to move x squared over here because this one's bigger. Since I'm moving everything, or I started moving that over here, I'm just going to move everything over here. So I'm going to subtract x squared and add 2x and subtract 15. And then combine all of those things. So 3x squared minus x squared will give me 2x squared, 7x squared plus 2x. I'm sorry, just 7x. 7x plus 2x would be 9x, and then minus 15. Now it looks like a normal problem. Now we can find our A, B, and C and continue that process. So for the remainder of class, I want you to work through as many of these problems as you feel that you need. Maybe find one where you don't simplify the square roots and then do one that you do have to do the square roots, or it does simplify. If you feel comfortable with those and want to keep going, you can do that. If you feel comfortable with those and then want to work on your Delta Math or Khan Academy, you can do that. So the Delta Math and Khan Academy for quadratic formula, is due next week. So the Delta Math is due on Tuesday. The Khan Academy is due next Friday. So you have time to get those done, but you could start on them today as well after you try some of